this, and then we could kind of jump into the questions. So first and foremost, we have our builders today. We have Steve Porter with Kensington Homes. Steve, if you'd like to say hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I've been building a little over 10 years now. My partner, who's not here with us, he's been building probably almost 25 years now. I'm the young buck on the team. He's the older guy with all the wisdom, and we make a wonderful team. He says I bring the millennial side to the team, and I say he brings the grandpa side, and it really works because we play good cop, bad cop with everybody. In terms of I relate to the younger crowd, he relates to the older crowd, and you know, you're not going to have all the customers that love me or love him, and we can really divide up and conquer and really build a good quality house for everybody and have a good relationship no matter who we're building for. So thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you being here. So next we have Mark Verdova with Pain and Pain. Mark, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of it. As Danielle said, I work for Pain and Pain Builders. I'm our vice president, so I oversee our sales, our project management, our design, basically everything on the pre-construction side. And we're a custom home builder that builds all over Northeast Ohio. So, you know, on people's lots, like individual lots, sometimes in subdivisions, sometimes knocking down a home to build a new one. And I've been in the business since 2003. I worked obviously for Pain and Pain for the last 13 years, and then I worked for both Pulte and Centex, two big national builders. And I got my real estate license a little over a year ago. So that's a little something about me. And again, appreciate you having me on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mark. So next we have our lenders. First, we have Jenny French with Premier Bank. Jenny, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. So as Danielle stated, I am Jenny. I am with Premier Bank. I've been doing construction loans for a little over 20 years now. My background is with Parkview Federal Savings Bank, which they did a lot of construction loans. You know, then I moved to Home Savings Bank, and we just recently merged with Premier Bank. So happy to be part of this fabulous group. What perfect timing, but now in this market. So this is like perfect timing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Happy to have you. Next, we have Tim Davison from CHM Lending. Tim, are you here?
I am. Hey, how
you
guys?
There you are, right in the middle. I'm looking all the way around my screen, and you're directly in the middle.
So I too was also with Centex. I've been a mortgage broker now for 20 years. Got my career started with Centex, which was CTX Mortgage. They were out of Texas, but I was locally here for one of the production builders, Wayne Homes. So I did quite a bit of business with them prior to the crash. So 20-year veteran of doing mortgages. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Happy to have your experience on here. Next, we have our real estate agents. So we have Blaise Rosser with the Foundations Group. Blaise, would you like to say hello?
Sure, I'm Blaise Rosser with the Foundations Group. I've been doing construction loans since probably 2000, maybe even earlier than that. And I've probably done just as many units. I've probably done over 2,000 construction units during that course of time, both construction perm and end loan type building. And hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of questions on here for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Blaise. And then last but not least, we have Jen Waters with the Young Team. Jen, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Yep, I'm with the Young Team and our Pepper Pike office. I've been licensed for 6 years, and I dabbled a little bit in new construction prior to being licensed. I've worked with builders steadily since my first year in real estate. So while I'm not as experienced as some of the other people on the panel, hoping to provide a little bit of insight into any questions you might have.
Thanks, Jen. Happy to have you here. All right, everyone. Again, if you have any questions during any of the questions that we're asking our panelists, please feel free to write those down. And we're going to circle back at the end of the call and just run through some of those questions you might have. So first and foremost, we're going to start out with, I kind of broke this into some questions that everybody can put a perspective on, and then some questions broken down for each of our different panelists. So first and foremost, this is a big question that I know a lot of us are probably yearning to know. How has COVID-19 affected the new construction market? Price of lumber, delays, appraisals, working with buyers, lending, all of it. So whoever has an answer will kind of let you guys jump in and answer as you wish.
I can go first.
Thanks, Mark.
Sorry. So I think the biggest thing that happened to us, and I'm sure it's happened with you, is just pivoting in how we meet and how we talk with people. So, as we sit here on this big platform now with Zoom, we've used that a ton. It's really changed our business. It's created a ton of efficiency. So we're using that for client meetings. I haven't printed a piece of paper in over a year, as we're doing everything on .loop and scanning and PDFs. And so it's that technology side of it has been big. I can tell you from the construction side, which is probably what you're more interested in, for us, we're needing to order things sooner. So, there's longer cycle times. So when let's say that you've got a client and you're working with a builder and we're saying, hey, we need more money sooner in the process, or hey, you need to make those selections sooner in the process. A lot of that is because we're needing to put up money and order things sooner just to be able to keep our regular timeline. So, we've been working with the same trades for a long time and a lot of the same suppliers. So, we're, as a company, we've been very blessed. We haven't had any delays, but we are doing some things sooner to try to impact those. And so I would say those are the two biggest things for us is, using this platform, so many more meetings now on Zoom, and then ordering things sooner is a must. We've had some buzzer beaters of trying to get the appliances in at the very end of a closing, that we ordered months and months in advance. So that's something that I'm sure, Steve and other builders on this panel are probably experiencing the same thing.
Yes, Steve, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so to echo you, Mark, you're absolutely right. I have seen a total night and day difference. Before, when we started a house, I'd sign a contract, we'd get through the preliminary bank paperwork, the blueprint, and we'd get ready to break ground, and I could order my lumber package and get rolling into things and just take it step by step. Now, as soon as I sign a contract, some of the big hangups that I'm having are, and there's good and bad, so I want to preface this. So this is the negative, and I'll also give you some good as well. But now, as soon as I'm signing a contract, I'm having my customers order garage doors. That's a big one. No one even thinks of. I had a customer move in last week with a garage door that wasn't theirs, that we are just going to swap out when the new one comes in. Kitchen cabinets. I hate to order them without the house framed, but we're ordering cabinets without the house framed because they're taking weeks and weeks and weeks. It's 3 months for cabinets to come in, and then half of them don't come in. Half of them are damaged. Now, obviously, my custom cabinet guys, if the customer wants those, we're not having a huge problem with that. But altogether, to summarize that, the supply chain is just destroyed. Everybody is blaming COVID. I'm not sure how long we can keep blaming COVID for. I jokingly say that because all of us on this panel, everyone on this call, we're all still working. So where's the hang up? And I don't have that answer. Further on the negative, before I get to the positive, to give you guys an example, and I'm sure you've all heard about the cost skyrocketing. Last year, this time, lumber, they evaluated in futures on the stock market, they go by 1,000 board feet is the measurement. It was $311. As of today, right before this call, I checked, I believe it was $1,274. So lumber's went up 4 times in the last year. You add that onto the cost of shingles. We've gotten 3 shingle increases this year in 2021. That doesn't include last year. Then you add in the manufacturing supply chain issue of getting those in. The costs are exorbitant. The other negative thing I'm seeing is appraisals about a month ago were coming in really short. You know, some people could turn that around and say, well, you need to build a house a lot cheaper. And I'm sure we're trying. I promise you, I'm trying to give the absolute best price to my customers. But there's only so much you can do. And as a builder, and Mark, you're a little bit bigger than us, so you probably know to the penny of how many nails you have in a house. And I've got a good idea of what that is. But man, every day when lumber goes up, it was up $28 this morning. I can't even begin to guess where my prices are going to be later today, let alone in a month from now. If I sign a contract today, what it may be in a month or what it may be in 60 days. I am hoping and praying every single day lumber prices go down, because I don't like having conversations with customers that our prices have went up. But it's just where we're at now. Now, I will tell you, just in the last week, I've had 2 appraisals come in, and they came in over what I was building the house for. So is that a sign of that the appraisals have now caught up with the housing market? I feel good about that. So I think so. There's a lot of good about it. As a builder, I love when customers have everything picked out right up front. I think it's awesome. Do I push for that? No, I don't push for that, because building is very easy, but it's stressful for somebody who only does it maybe once or twice in their whole life. So I don't want them to worry about doorknobs and garage doors from day one. But man, it's really cool to say, hey, COVID's delayed these things, get everything picked out now. And it makes my job in building their home a lot easier. So there's also a lot of good. The appraisals are coming in good. The banks are still, their interest rates are still low. People are getting approved left and right. I don't want to say it looks like the bubble of 2007-8 again, but I will tell you, banks are really free with their money. I will say though, and Tim, you'll dive into this, I'm sure. I will say they want a lot more documentation than they did 10, 12 years ago. However, they like to give that money out. So I'm liking that as well. For me personally, and then I'll be quiet for a little bit. We have doubled this year alone how many houses and contracts we've signed due to COVID of what we did last year. We really saw about a 3-week stoppage last year in end of March, April, and then it just took off, and everybody's wanting to build a home now. I think in my personal opinion, it's a mixture between there's no inventory, and then also people were crammed in their house for a year and got on Pinterest and every realtor website and watched HGTV, and now they all want to build a house, and they all want. I've even noticed people are wanting to build a little bit bigger homes than they were building a year or two ago, because they're just afraid we're going to get shut down again, and they want to, you know, for lack of a better term, they want to party at their house.
Yeah.
So
Mark, are you
that's
seeing
my
that
input.
too? Double the like more contracts and more people building, you know, just because they need more space and they're going to be at home now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we were quite double. I mean, we ended up, we did increase business. I think that, to Steve's point, people's needs changed. So with a lot of us now working from home, some of us having to have our kids get educated from home, I think that really shined a spotlight on it for people that they needed a different space. I think, you know, also a trend that's been happening for a little while, we're seeing more what I call multi-generational homes, where, you know, somebody, let's say, is 50 years old, they could still have their kids living with them, and they could actually have mom or dad potentially living with them for a window of time where you've got 2 to 3 generations living in a house. And so I think as people are living longer, and that's happening more, and now with people working more from home, we really saw an uptick of people wanting different spaces in their house and wanting more away spaces. So again, 5 years ago, it was all about an open concept. Now it's about, hey, where can I go in my house where I can close the door and I can do this Zoom call? And so I think that motivated a lot of people to do renovations and to build new homes.
That's very interesting. And I had a feeling that was probably the case. So thanks for sharing that, Steve and Mark. What about Tim, Jenny, in terms of the lending world? I mean, Steve touched on just like even appraisals coming in low at first, and now he's seeing them coming high. What have you guys seen with that?
So I'll go. So for me, knock on wood here, the past probably 5 months, I have not had any low appraisals. Everything's been coming in above market or at market right now. My business has doubled in the past 5 months because a lot of people now, there's no inventory out there for homes, right? So their option is to build. So for me and my bank, I have not seen any decrease on my end with appraisals. So I'm not sure what else is out there. I'm not sure if I'm just lucky. But for me, it's been perfect.
Well, I hope it stays that way.
Yes.
What about you, Tim?
So I'm seeing, I would say, an insane amount of inquiries about new construction right now. I probably never had more inquiries. The challenges we're seeing is, I see Kate had a question here in the chat. We're seeing the same challenges where unfortunately the builders have no other choice. They have to raise the price 30, 50 grand, 100 grand. I had a deal in Philadelphia. Obviously that's a way different market than Northeast Ohio. Customer was hoping to be around the 650 mark. Once pricing finally came in, which took forever, by the way, they were well over $1 million. So yes, on one hand, their expectation level is probably way off, but on the other hand, the builder was having such a hard time, and maybe Mark and Steve can reference this, just getting prices from their suppliers has been a real challenge. So my customer that qualified for 650, unfortunately, they did not qualify for, I think it was like 1.1 million. So that deal ended up dying. So I'm seeing a ton of inquiries, but we're just seeing prices that are just out of the reach of consumers. So that's what I'm seeing.
I love that you shared that, because even driving around, you know, seeing different builders and they have their signs up, build from, you know, like the 230s or the 340s, and you could see that their signs have been corrected. Like they've put something over the signs because the pricing has had to go up. And I mean, just based off what Steve and Mark shared in terms of all the different pricing increases and delays on things, I'm sure that all of this adds to the difficulty, in a sense, with really narrowing down that price to build.
Hey, Danielle, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
So we were thinking about opening this call to the entirety of KWYP nationwide. And then when we talked about it, we wanted it to be region specific. So I saw Kevin put something in the chat about Pittsburgh, and Tim, you just talked about Philadelphia, which I don't think our markets are that dissimilar, but we appreciate the regionality of it. So, I appreciate what you said, Tim, but we want to be region specific, I guess is the way to put it. So
yeah, definitely. So I'm going to jump into another question here. We pride ourselves on having all the knowledge we can have about the real estate market, homes in the process from start to finish. What should we absolutely know for new construction that we might not know as agents? Like if you could think of something, you know, if you're working with an agent, if you're an agent that's working with builders, something that maybe you've learned, so we can get some of our agents in here to share their thoughts. I would love to hear, you know, what you think we should absolutely know.
May I go first?
Sure, Steve.
Here's what I tell all the agents that I work with. And I did see a question I wanted to circle back to about pricing too, so I can do that at the end of this. But I tell all the agents, guys, and I don't know how any other builders do on here, get me the customer. That's all I need you to do. And I mean that nicely. It's no diss to you guys or anything. Get me the customer. I will hold their hand. I will get them pricing. I will handle the blueprint. I would love for you to be in every single meeting. I would love for you to be a go-between. I'd love for you to sit on the side. I don't care what you do. I want you there. I don't care if you're there. And I mean that nicely, because my hardest challenge is getting the customer there and getting them to trust a builder. We are very trustworthy, but I feel there's a negative connotation with builders. And I don't feel I feel it's false. So getting the customer to me, and I have a lot of agents who bring me a customer and I never see that agent again. And I get a text 6 to 8 months later saying, hey, where should I send my brokerage statement to? And I'm okay with that. That's great. I get other agents that, man, they want to know when we're putting the windows in, when we're putting the caulk around the tub, and that's okay too. I'm okay with all of it, but it is so super easy is my point. You just get them to us. We take care of you guys on the brokerage commission side. You will get paid on that. So you just get them to us. My company personally, we will never circumvent an agent. We know we need agents. You guys are the face of, even my company, you're the face of Keller Williams, and people trust you guys. So that's really my takeaway. And then there was a question about, that I just wanted to share on,
Hey,
about,
Steve, we could circle back to the questions at the end. So anybody, if you leave a question in the
no
chat, we'll
problem.
circle back at the end if that's okay, so we can keep this moving along. I would love to hear from some of our agents, Jen or Blaze, in regards to new construction. You guys do a lot of business here. What do you think as fellow agents we should absolutely know about new construction and how to, you know, be a good support system?
You can go first.
Okay. I mean, I guess one of the most important things I like to inform my clients, whether it's somebody coming into a builder that I already represent, or it's a buyer I'm currently working with that wants to explore new construction with, let's say, a national builder like Pulte, is truly just, you know, make sure you know all of the facts. I know from past experience walking into like a Ryan Homes model, you know, they walk in and they say 289.9, but the model you're standing in is really 395, you know? So really making sure you know exactly what's including, getting a breakdown of allowances if it's a custom builder, and then also setting the expectations with your client of how a new construction deal goes from start to finish, and how involved do they want you to be, because like to Steve's point, you can be not involved at all after the initial introduction and contract signing, or you can be at every single walkthrough, electrical, lighting, plumbing, etc. It's really more so I like to find out what my client's level of involvement and what they want me part of. So, and from that perspective, I've most of the time never had an issue if a client just says, hey, I'll just go straight to the builder and for the meetings and be fine. But it really, I think it helps to set the expectations up front as to what they want.
I agree. Thanks, John. What do you think, Blaze?
The topic that Steve brought up about bringing your client to the builder, and that's where the disconnect is. A lot of realtors will not bring the client to the builder, but once that client is to the builder, they try to circumvent the system 3 weeks later and say, hey, that was my client, I want paid.
Yeah.
We all know what procuring cause means. If you didn't recommend that builder, you don't deserve to be paid. If you did recommend that builder, or you recommended several builders because your client is out there shopping for existing homes for builders, but you recommended, hey, go see this builder and go see that builder, and you register it on their website or you called the builder directly, then you're the procuring cause. But if you're one of those agents that's trying to circumvent the system and get paid for a referral that wasn't made truly by you, that's where the disconnect and the trust just isn't there between realtors and builders. Builders said, you know, that they feel like Steve said he may not feel like he gets trusted all the time. And it's for this very topic, we try to squeeze in and get commissions for something that maybe we didn't earn. Or a builder cuts us out of a commission that we did earn, because I've had that happen here recently as well. So yeah, it's a tight rope to walk, but the best thing, if you're a realtor on this call, just make sure that you're registering your client with those builders prior to them ever walking through the door, and have it in writing, and you shouldn't have a problem.
I appreciate you and Jen sharing that, because I agree. I've been in the situation before where I talk to clients about, you know, in my buyer presentation, I can help you if you're interested in building. I asked them the question. They were not originally interested, and then they went to a Ryan Homes open house over a weekend. And since I wasn't there with them, I was not, even though I was working with them for close to a year trying to help them find a home, I got cut out of the equation. And that was a big eye opener for me. So definitely share with your clients, at your first meeting, hey, maybe you're not interested in building now, or maybe it's in the back of your mind somewhere, but just know if you ever are, I can connect you with those builders and make sure that you're talking to the right people. Lenders.
It's also another really good reason to have buyers sign buyers agreements, because when they go out and they talk to builders, they know in the back of their mind they signed a contract with you, and they're much more likely to say your name when they go to that builder.
That is a very good point.
That'll make a big difference. So if you're representing buyers, a lot of us don't like to have that signed, but if you don't want to get cut out of the deal, it's a good idea to try to get that signed up front.
Totally agree. Jenny and Tim, anything that you feel we should absolutely know about new construction from the finance perspective?
So we'll be getting into like the nitty gritty, like the down payment kind of a stuff, or just.
We'll dive a little bit deeper into there, but this was just, being that for new construction, you still need to have that pre-approval. Is there any different conversation that people maybe need to be having with you prior to going and speaking with builders, or they can?
No, I mean, not necessarily on my end. I mean, our bank, construction is a big niche of our bank. We do a lot of construction loans, a lot of land loans. And we do a lot of manual underwriting, which means sometimes if it doesn't make sense, we'll manually underwrite it. So like we portfolio it, we'll keep the loan. We don't have to service it to Fannie or Freddie. So in that aspect, I don't see anything other than like those kind of things that we've all touched base on earlier on the panel.
Okay, cool. If anybody else doesn't have anything to share, I'll jump to the next question here.
I can throw in on that one as well. On the construction to perm side, where the buyer is buying the land up front and they're doing a true construction loan. From a realtor's perspective, when you're buying an existing home, you have to qualify with the 2 house payments there, and you're going to still have to do that on the construction loan. But with the construction loan, one of the wonderful things is during construction, the payment is interest only based on the amount of money that's been drawn. So it's a gradual ease into when that home is finished, and you're not making 2 full house payments while that home is being built. And that makes a huge difference in people's minds of how they understand their monthly finances, because they all panic when they think they have to make 2 house payments. But if they truly understand the construction loan, that doesn't exist. It's a gradual increase.
We might have to circle back to that with lenders just so we could have a better understanding, but I appreciate you bringing that up, Blaise, because I definitely would love to know more about that.
And Danielle?
Yes.
I had 2 things I wanted to say on these topics. First, to you, Danielle, what I do with realtors so they don't get circumvented by their own client, even if they don't show up to the first meeting, if they just call me and say, hey, John Smith's going to contact you or text you, they're my client. No problem. You're registered, you're good. It's simple as that with us. If you want a formal paper, I can sign one and put it down for you. But a text or a phone call, if you want to come, and I highly recommend trying to come to the first meeting, but as you know, your clients sometimes are sporadic and want to call on a Saturday and just show up with the builder, and that's okay too. Just tell them to let us know they're working with a realtor, and we've got no problem with that. And then Blaise, to your point about the draws, you're 100% right. It's interest only until they're done. What I try to do if I've got excess funds or I can help my client out, I try not to call for draws until I absolutely need them. So, and I think a lot of my customers don't fully appreciate that. But if I'm not calling for their second draw until I'm almost done with their house, that's a lot of interest they're saving. But I try to do that if I can. We've got a lot of houses going, and if there's a lot of money going out, sometimes I can't do that, but I do try to help the customers out because it is interest only.
Okay. Got it. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump into, I want to kind of break this down a little bit. So our agents here that have worked with new construction or helped people with new construction in the past, how do you market yourself as a new construction real estate agent? Blaze, your sound's still on, so it looks like you want to go.
I was letting her go first. As far as marketing myself as an agent, listing homes on land. Land is one of the biggest topics when we talk about new construction because there's not much of it out there, especially land that has city water, city sewer. I'm fortunate enough that I have a few subdivisions with a builder that I do have that, and I'm able to take a home that's to be built that I've already sold 10 times. I have pictures for it and I can list it on the MLS. So between when this meeting started and right now, I've had 4 inquiries from other realtors asking me about that particular subdivision and wanting to build. So it's really just a matter of advertising on homes on land that may not exist, but you can build within a certain period of time at a certain price.
So I would love to hear that, just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So you have land that you have for sale, and you have a relationship with a builder that you're basically advertising that you could build this property on this land.
Well, I mean, in this particular case, he built this house and we listed it during that time. So it generated a bunch of phone calls and it's still generating phone calls. It's since sold, but it's still making my phone ring. So it's a wonderful.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. What do you think, Jen?
So I would say definitely agree with Blaze. I mean, it helps to have the ability to post your own listings of new construction. We happen to represent several builders, but specifically I work with Kingdom Homes in Mayfield Heights and the Pepper Pike area. So I have a community that I'm able to market myself with. And agree with Blaze, we have some under construction homes that we are able to use to sell the community, but we also have vacant lots where we can put up what Blaze described would be a ghost listing with an estimated completion time and a ballpark price. And really, I would say, while I struggle with social media, I think this is also the power of social media. If you are a new construction agent or you want to get it out there to your clients or potential friends, family, whatever, most of the misconception is they can't use an agent when they go to see a builder or new construction. So really using the power of social media to market yourself and let people know you can, in fact, use representation, and almost all of the builders I've ever worked with welcome representation. So I really think it's just getting it out there and letting people know that you can help them with new construction.
I agree. I think that's huge. And I'm sure all of us could be doing that a little bit better and sharing, just letting people know that you're there to represent them in all real estate transactions. So thank you for sharing. So to take that a little bit further, how do you feel you can be, you've been able to be supportive without overwhelming the client through the process? I know you mentioned earlier, Jen, like setting those expectations. Do you feel that typically you're pretty involved, or most of the time you're kind of stepping aside and letting the builder come in?
So again, it really depends on the client. And I think once you establish a rapport with your client, you'll know how independent they truly want to be. Most of my clients, up until probably, after the first initial meetings of getting, the pricing set and selections and a final, total here, they generally tend to kind of just communicate with the builder directly to set up all of their walkthroughs and things like that they don't feel it's important for me to be there. Every once in a while, they'll reach out and ask an opinion on something, or if they have an issue and they want my help with it. But for the most part, after I think the first few meetings, I'm pretty hands off up until we get closer to the end and we start doing things like the punch list and the walkthrough, et cetera.
Okay. What do you feel about that, Blaze?
I think
she's supporting your client. Okay.
Well.
Cool. So then I'd love to kind of hear that that question being answered by maybe by the lenders and the builders. Like, how do you think that it would be best for us to support our clients through the process? Because I know as an agent, I'm mostly communicating with the title company, with the lenders, and kind of holding the deal together. But when a builder steps in, even how you were talking about making draws, if it's a construction loan, these are things that maybe I don't understand as much. So I want to make sure that I'm representing them in the best way. So how do you feel it's best to support them through the process? Mark, I haven't heard from you in a minute. What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably, as you guys mentioned, I mean, every client's different. There's probably some, like if they're working with us, that feel really comfortable and you're kind of off to the races. But I mean, to me, I think it's always a good practice to be talking at least once a week. So that might be a practice of just, hey, you know, you're getting ready to start the week, it's Monday, and you're reaching out to your client in the builder, hey, you know, just recapping this, what we got accomplished last week. Here's what I'm assuming we need to do this week. And again, I think it's just kind of organic. I've had agents that are very involved, as Steve had said. I've had some that aren't super involved. I like Steve, put a huge value on having an agent at the table. I think it's great to have a third party, somebody that they trust, that they know isn't benefiting by working with me versus another builder. So I value and want to include you as much as possible. I think that the main thing, in my opinion, is getting through the process of getting, on our end as a custom builder, getting a plan that the client likes and a price that the client accepts. Once you get to that point, if I'm you as the real estate agent, you're pretty much rounding third base at that point, because then at that point we're locking in pricing, and you know, them picking cabinets and stuff, unless they have a unique relationship with you, they're probably not going to work with you on that element. You know, we have interior designers, I have architects, you know, not that you wouldn't be invited to those meetings, but we could have those meetings without an agent. So I think if you're heavily involved, as you get that plan right, I've had agents throw out great comments in meetings of, oh, I think you might need more room here, or have you considered that? I think having you involved in the plan development and being involved to help that client stay okay with where that price investment comes up. Two, once that's accepted, I think at that point, you know, you're in more of a reactive mode. But I think having you involved as you go through that is key. That way, you know, your deal is being held together, and you can jump in as needed to save the deal, or throw out a creative idea.
I love that, because I think that accountability is huge. And in our industry, we're kind of always trying to keep our clients and everybody involved accountable. So even just reaching out, like you said, once a week, you know, that way you still know that things are going smoothly and you're not getting that phone call, you know, months down the road where it's like, oh no, we're not building anymore, or something happened and you don't know what's going on. I feel like that could be a little scary call, but yeah, really appreciate those things you shared. Jenny and Tim, any thoughts on that and how to best support a client, especially, you know, with the lending side of things, as you're usually dealing mostly with the builder?
So from our perspective, one of our biggest challenges is getting paperwork from the builder.
Okay.
A lot of builders are really good at what they do in regards to design and construction, but they struggle when it comes to the bank's paperwork.
Okay.
So that's one of our biggest frustrations. You know, I'm sure that builders get frustrated with us from time to time as well, because we ask for so many documents. I do a lot of VA construction loans, so that's just even more paperwork, right? Because it's a government construction loan. So the quicker we can get paperwork from the builder, the quicker we can close, because everybody wants to close fast, right? Nobody wants to close slow. So that, and then just setting up the expectation with the customer, like, hey, if you want to buy an existing home, you know, you can close in 3 or 4 weeks, but if you're getting a construction loan, you're not closing in a couple weeks, right? There's got to be a better expectation on that.
So setting those timeline expectations for sure. Yeah, and honestly, the paperwork, I was kind of wondering how that all worked, because especially when you're talking about a construction loan and making draws and things like that, I would want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make the process simpler. So knowing that getting those documents and maybe facilitating that for you guys can help, you know, be the glue that keeps it all together. Cool. Awesome. So let's see here. Let's jump into a little bit more of the lending process. So this question might be, you know, I've heard that builders have lenders, and then there's also, you know, obviously private mortgage lenders. Any pros and cons that you've found? I mean, have you had clients that have, I guess this maybe not just be a lending question, but even maybe for builders and agents, what do you have to say on that in terms of working with a bank and working with a builder's lender?
I can piggyback kind of off that a little bit.
Yeah.
So for me, working for a bank, most of my clients, literally probably 80% that build, always want to know if we're going to service their loan. And the answer is yes. We service our loans. It's so, so important. I have been with customers for the past 5 years who still call me to this day because they have questions. So I think servicing is huge for me. They always know who to call when they're, when they're not with some of the services. They don't, they sell their loans. We don't. We keep our loans.
Okay. So that's an important question to ask. If you're trying to make that decision between a builder's lender and a private lender, who's going to be servicing that loan? Because I have heard that like Ryan Homes has their builder, but then they also sell those loans, right? Or their lender, right? Okay.
Yeah, they do sell those loans.
And Mark and Steve, do you guys have your own financing department, or do you typically work with private lenders?
So on our end, we do all construction loans. So,
Okay.
we work a lot with Premier Bank, actually, who Jenny's with. They do a great job. They have the ability to do lot loans, which is key for us. So we don't have our own lender. And for me, what I try to tell our clients is when it's new construction and it's custom home building, it's not always great to go to like these big box lenders that, big national giant powerhouse companies for banks to do residential construction loans. They don't always specialize in them. So I'll have people that'll go to the PNCs or, banks like that. Some of them don't do them. And then some that do, it's a little clunky. Again, I won't name any names, but just some of the other bigger banks, are a little clunkier. So I love Premier. I'm not saying that just because Jenny's on the call. We'd never met before this. I work with one of her colleagues a lot, Dave Pels, but Premier is our number one choice. I try to get everyone to go with them because they're really easy to work with. And then after that, you got banks like a Third Federal or a Fifth Third or something like that, or First Federal Lakewood as well. Those are some banks that seem to do construction loans, but Premier is a great one. Used to be Home Savings. That's who we use for nearly all of them.
And I think, sorry, Steve, I know you're about to say something, but Jenny had mentioned that the appraisal process, sometimes, it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more flexibility there. Whereas with those bigger banks, those private banks, public banks, it might be a little bit more difficult to get things accepted.
I think if you're working, at least for me as a builder, and again, I don't know how relative this is for an agent because you're working with all different lenders probably all the time, but for me and probably for Steve, if you're working with the same, representative over and over again, and you're giving them a lot of business like we do with Premier, we do get some help getting that second appraisal or getting that regional vice president guy involved, on a situation to make a judgment call. And those are things like in my wheelhouse. Again, if someone was building with me, I want to go to Premier because I got the best chance of getting them appraised, or if they've got a special situation, I can get that done because I can call the guy that I give 40 deals to a year versus a bank that I worked with one time 4 years ago and they, I don't have any strokes. So I think that is one thing. If you do find a builder that has a lender like a Premier on the custom side that they work with a lot, could make the road a little easier for your client, even if that interest rate is a hair higher, just to get through that process and get through it well.
So maybe even asking a builder if they have a preferred or a lender that they work with regularly to make the process more seamless. Steve, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so to echo what Mark said, I couldn't agree more. And I don't want to name any of the big lenders, but the big boys that you think of when you either Google banks or Google construction lenders are sometimes the more difficult ones. I've got, and as a builder, we'll work with anybody. I've got a loan right now with one of the number one construction banks in the Eastern United States, and they've been tough. I've asked them to email me things. I've asked them to get me documents, and everything has to come certified mail, and it's just crazy. Mark, you had mentioned First Federal Lakewood. That is one of the banks I highly recommend. They're phenomenal. I work with them a lot, but as a whole, the industry that I see that it's easier on the builder side is the smaller banks. And Jenny, I've never worked with you or your bank, and I would love to get more information on you guys, but the Westfield banks of the world, the Farmers banks, First Federal Lakewood, those are the banks that I feel as a builder, my customers, my clients that I build for get better service. I don't know interest rate wise. I feel like First Federal is pretty competitive. I feel like Westfield's pretty competitive. Tim, I've sent you a few things. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to work together, but you've been very competitive as well. But it's the small town feel, the more personalized service that I think in the construction industry, at least in Northern Ohio, going to the smaller banks is much easier. If I have a problem with an appraisal issue, I literally call up the lender myself. They know me, they help me, they guide me. Do they give me customers' personal details? Absolutely not. They don't share any of that. But I can say, hey, this appraisal, the customer told me they're 15 grand low. What the heck? Can we get an appeal? Can we look at this again? When I'm dealing with one of the larger guys that I'm working with now, I have no clue who I'm even working with. There's about 14 different people that have called me that wanted documentation and paperwork, and it's a nightmare. And I literally can't do anything for my customers. The smaller banks, I can help out all day long. Sometimes you just can't do anything, but overall, you got a lot more pull with the smaller guys.
Danielle, can I say something as far as
Yeah.
from an agent side?
Yeah.
When it comes to the appraisal, especially with these custom builders that are doing high-end work, and a lot of times these appraisers are comparing it to properties that they shouldn't compare it to. We'll go through, we'll analyze the appraisals. Blaze is great at that, as far as we get a low appraisal going through and getting it overturned. And that's where the realtor is going to do a lot of their work too.
Okay. So we can help support them, through the appraisal process. Is there anything to touch on that even a little bit more? Is there anything specific? I mean, for me as a listing agent, I put together a list of improvements for the appraiser to make it more seamless for them and kind of do their homework. Is there something similar that we can do for that appraiser to make sure that they understand the costs that are going in to build this home?
It all depends on the bank.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I saw Mark raise his hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
A lot of times, if you can help with comps, it can help. So again, as an agent, you have access to all this stuff. So if you know that we're building a 3,000 square foot home in, I don't know, Gates Mills, you can pull some other recent stuff that is sold and try to help. That's really what happens. We'll fire over plans, specs, and a contract. So that appraiser knows what I'm building and what supposedly is in the house. And then they do what you do and they get their, competitive market analysis, so to speak, pulling these other homes, and then they deem a value. Well, sometimes, they're pulling houses that aren't favorable, especially myself or Steve. We're building in 2021. I'm building to a higher code with newer stuff, and everything costs more. So if you're going to pull a house that was built in 1975 that sold in an estate sale down the street, not a great comparable for me. So, you as an agent could help stack the deck, maybe look for some homes that you could use as an appraisal, because it's very difficult. Our new builds and stuff don't go in the MLS. So I can't say, oh, well, here's the $1 million home that I built down the street. They won't use it because it's not in the MLS. But if you can help with trying to source comps, that could help get that appraisal and maybe help challenge that appraisal if they're going to do a second one.
So I love that you mentioned that, Mark, because we did talk about like the ghost listings, and Blaze, I think you might be able to touch on this a little bit. If you are working with a client and you're supporting your client, should we be putting that as a sold in the MLS to help with comps for, future builds?
Well, not only if you're working with a client, but if you're representing a builder, you can put comp-only comps in the MLS if you need to help support your value. So it can be something that, the builder sold, but you need it as a comp to put in there. You're not getting paid for it or anything, but you're putting it in the MLS to have it in there as a comp. Because another way to help combat an appraisal is to let your builder know when the appraiser is going to go out to the property if it's something that is already under construction. If it's construction to perm, not possible, but if it's an end loan type situation, the builder can meet them there and be able to talk them through the upgrades and different homes that they've sold right in that same neighborhood that can help with the comparables. So that's not what we're really talking about on this phone with scattered site building, but when it's a subdivision, that can certainly be used. I just had last week an appraisal that came in, and I'll throw the name out there, Ryan Homes. they put ghost listings on the MLS,
Mhm.
and the appraiser came in low. But what I did was he used all Ryan Holmes comps. I jumped into their comparables, and if you look at the top, what they listed it for, and you stop there, that's all you'd have. But down at the bottom, they said this home sold for X, and it was this many more or less square feet. By reading that extra line, I was able to change my appraised value completely, where, you know, it's tough to battle an appraiser, but if I use their comps and push back on what they use, I'll win every time. And I was able to get the appraisal up, and we are going to be closing here in a week or two. It was not a problem at all. And it was because of the information that was already available in the MLS. You just can't take it for face value. Sometimes you got to sit down and read a little bit.
Very interesting. Jen, did you have something you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To touch on the appraisals, I've met builders or appraisers at the models before, especially in communities where they might be an anomaly. They're a high-end community and a community of other, you know, older, smaller homes. And I know appraisers have a habit of going onto the auditor site and looking at lot transfers and wondering, you know, about values. And so that's where you really need to, I think, as an agent representing a builder or representing your client, you know, step in and say, you know, this home sold for this home sold for this, and just really have the knowledge of the community that you're helping your clients in. But I also wanted to touch on, before we jump subjects, because we've talked a lot about appraisals and new construction loans. Some of these national builders that do have their own banks that are willing to finance the loans offer conventional end loans. So like the Ryan Homes, the Pulte Homes, they want you to use Pulte Mortgage. They want you to use Ryan Homes Mortgage. With that, I think it's really important to let your clients know that they should still, in turn, I think, rate shop if they're going to go with a conventional end loan. You know, they definitely, these bigger national builders will sometimes offer incentives such as extra closing costs or, you know, whatever. But it's truly important, just like with any normal transaction, for them to actually really understand what they're looking at. Are the closing costs higher and they're just offering a credit? Is the rate a comparable rate? You know, there are advantages and disadvantages to using a national builders lender, but I think it's still important for a buyer to do their due diligence and make sure they're getting the best deal.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I have been in a situation before where someone was considering getting pre-approved with a builder's lender, and specifically because they said that they could offer certain perks if they went that route. So I totally agree. You should always have a second opinion, even if you're buying resale. You know, you never know what a totally different lender could provide you. So thank you for sharing that. Tim, I know you didn't get a chance to really touch on this at all. Is there anything that you wanted to mention based off of, you know, I know that our original, we kind of got away from our original question, but it was, you know, the pros and the cons to a private lender versus working with a builder's lender. Anything that you would like to share being in the lending world?
So I've been on both sides.
Okay.
You know, when I was with Centex, CTX Mortgage, I was the direct lender for Wayne Homes. They're a big production builder right here in Northeast Ohio, right? So they had some special programs, so that was great. However, on the flip side, they were also not the cheapest, right? You know, you mentioned Ryan Homes. Are they the cheapest? Probably not. But with that said, you know, maybe there's some advantages to using NVR. If you get a free finished basement or a free sunroom. I've seen some crazy things they've thrown out there. Typically, when I get approached by someone building with Ryan, they'll take my loan estimate. I know I'm not going to get the business. They take it to NVR, they match the rate, right? So there's pros and cons, but I agree with Jennifer. Like, hey, you want to get a second opinion, you know?
Definitely.
So.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that, as you've been on both sides. It's interesting. All right. So in terms of loan options, do you think that it's better to do a construction loan versus a conventional loan? Is any opinion there? Maybe from our lenders or our builders or even agents, Blaise? What were your thoughts?
Your question, they're the same. You can get a conventional construction loan.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a different, the wording that you want to use or the language is end loan versus a construction to perm loan.
Okay.
An end loan falls into your Pultes, your Ryans, someplace that you're buying the house once it's finished. A construction to perm loan is where you're buying the land and funding the construction of the home being built during the process. That's as simplified as I can make it.
Okay. And personally, Blaze and John, have you done both? Do you have experience with one or the other? Any, thoughts on that?
I mean, as far as experience with it, you've got to work with whatever you have in front of you. If you're working with a builder that they only do scattered site building, which is building on the buyer's lot, well, you have to do a construction to perm loan. If you're working with a builder that owns the land in the subdivision, like a Ryan or a Pulte, well, then you do an end loan.
Okay.
But in both of those categories, you can do FHA, VA, conventional, you can do all sorts of different loans for both end loans and construction to perm.
So I've actually worked with Knez Homes in past where while they don't have a private lender, they will fund the build if the buyer wants, or they will let the buyer take out a construction loan. They did offer some incentives for the buyer to be able to take out a construction loan because ultimately upfront they are paying those interest payments as they draw on the loan. So for some buyers, they wanted to take advantage of the incentives, and some buyers didn't want to run the risk of what if the builder goes belly up in the middle of my construction, which I've never seen happen recently. But so I've had buyers working with them that have, one is opted for construction and one is opted for an end loan. It's really just situational on what's best for the buyer.
And I'd go
I'll
one
chime
step.
in one thing as a builder. So, for us, if I'm building a $1 million home, essentially what an end loan is that you wait until the end of the project to get paid. So not a big deal when you're buying an existing home, right? You're waiting for the home to close in 30 days and then everything just closes. As a builder, think about if I'm doing, our company does, like $30+ million a year in business. I can't float, $1 million loans for people. So the way that a construction loans works to dumb it down in case there's anyone who hasn't done this before is basically we get paid as we build your house. You're always protected in that I do work and then get paid. So I can't go like, Jen was referencing, hey, if the builder goes out of business, like there's no way that because of the system in place that we could essentially get out of business and have you had paid for something that you didn't get. I suppose anything can happen. So a builder could go out of business, but again, we're doing work. Then someone from the bank comes out, goes, okay, he did what he's supposed to do, and then releases the agreed upon percentage of work that we all did up front, which is set by the bank, not by the builder. So if the bank says, hey, once frame is done, we're going to give you X percentage, they come out, the person from the bank comes out for our buyer, confirms that work got done, then says, yes, you can release the funds, then we get paid. So your buyer is always ahead. But again, a builder like me, I mean, we could go out of business if I had 2 or 3 clients that just don't show up at the end and pay us. I mean, I could be out millions of dollars. So, that's the difference between us and maybe a Pulte or Ryan based on the size of the company and the size of the deals. We have to do construction loans. So, like Jennifer said, I suppose that there could be a situation where a builder may try to set up and do a special thing for someone on an end loan, but depending on the project, it can be risky. So right now in this market with our clients, everything would need to be a construction loan, working with Paint and Paint.
A big factor in this is who owns the land. If the builder owns the land, obviously, if they build a house and it doesn't sell to that person as an end loan, they can still sell that house to somebody else. But in Paint and Paint or any other builder that does scattered site, the buyer owns the land from the day that it closes. So if they don't get paid, they can't sell that house because they don't own the land that it sits on.
That's a great point.
That's the big differences in these. And the other thing I want to throw out there is they're not all loans either. There's cash buyers all the time in this market, but the rules still apply just the same. I'm sure both of you guys do this. Is if somebody's paying cash, there's still a draw system. They only pay for work performed. They're not laying down $800,000 day one and then hoping the house gets built. It's we pay you for the work that has been performed. And
to echo all that, what we do, probably just like Mark, I mean, it sounds identical. We do the draw process construction loan, and we do a small down payment up front that covers us for the blueprint costs, some permit costs if need be. And then we don't get paid anything else until we actually get the foundation in. And there's normally it's 5 draws. Sometimes you can get up to 7 draws. Occasionally, once you sign the contract and the loan actually closes, some title companies will give you like a 5 or 10% down. There's some different little variables, but overall, 5 to 7 draws, we don't get paid until the work is completed. Now, like Mark said, right now, given the current climate, end loans we have not done in a while. A few years ago, when building was slow, about 5-6 years ago, yeah, we did some of those end loans where the customer would not close on the deal and we wouldn't get paid until the house was 100% done. Like someone else was just saying, builder going under, and I hate to say this, but the flip for a builder, and this happened to me on a deal, the customers got divorced in the middle of the building. Thank God, house. So she was able to still get financed and get the house, but man, we had a lot of her touches and finishes. Sure, could I have sold that house to someone else? Yes. But I probably had 20-30 grand of stuff that nobody would have wanted because it was her stuff, and that's okay because we built it for her. But man, I was scared to death. So the one thing we do is if I do an end loan, if I do, which is very, very, very few, I get a substantial down payment, substantial. And then we let them do an end loan. Right now, given where we're at with everything, I'd be hard pressed to do that because all the risk is on me. And divorce, death, jobs. I mean, I can't tell you how many houses I started in the last year to do. I did a contract. We were working on blueprints, and the customers had to back out because they lost their jobs in the last year because of COVID. If I would have started on their home with an end loan, man, I would have been out a lot of money.
Interesting. See, this is all, I mean, I took a ton of notes to begin with on everything you guys have shared, but this is a big part of it that as real estate agents, I know from my perspective, I did not understand very well. And a lot of times our clients are coming to us, you know, with those financial questions. I always say, hey, best ask your lender that, but I still like to have an understanding of how we can, you know, point them in the right direction or fill them in on what's the best route to go. So I thank you all for sharing about that because that was a big eye opener for me. So I have a fun question. So given that it's Earth Day, builders, what are some ways in the building process that we can make things that clients can make things a little bit more eco-friendly? I know that that's probably something that you're seeing more. I mean, even maybe like solar energy or things like that. I mean, anything that you can share with us.
So I will say, we try to push smart homes. And what I mean by that term is so big and elusive and inclusive and not inclusive. You can do everything from Lutron switches in a house to Wi-Fi to TVs turning off to motion lights. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can put in a house. Here's the problem with doing all that. It all costs money. For example, I'm quoting a house now, and Mark, I've seen some of your work. You guys do beautiful work, so you may even have more experience, especially being up north. But I'm quoting a house now. They want Tesla shingles for the solar panels on the house.
Wow.
It was a simple, I want to say it's like a 2,300 square foot house, and it's almost 60 grand for these shingles versus like 10 grand. So the cost is astronomical, but people are wanting it. I don't think they're going to pay for that. Just for the record, but there's a lot of little things we can do to save costs. And the other thing is, and Mark, you touched on it earlier, the building code now versus just a year ago, let alone 5 years, 10 years ago, man, the insulation packages, these houses are so tight. The customers are saving money left and right on their utilities because we're building the houses so tight, which then brings in air quality issues and things of that nature. But these houses are 100 times more energy efficient than just 10, 20 years ago.
So has there been a lot of changes recently with code in the last year then? And you guys have mentioned that multiple times.
every year there is huge code changes. I will tell you, in the last year or two, we've seen a considerable amount of changes just with the energy code. They're just trying to build smarter, better, and I don't blame them. I think majority of code changes, and I couldn't put a number. I'd say 70, 80% are great changes. 30% are silly changes because they're protecting the general public from bad builders. Mark and I, we're the good guys, but there are bad builders out there, and there are good energy code changes that have been implemented. So yeah, every year we're getting tons of them, and we have to stay up on that.
Anything specific you wanted to add to that, Mark, in terms of ways that people are making their homes more eco-friendly?
I mean, I think Steve hit it all. What we do is try to ask people what it is they're trying to accomplish. So again, when you say eco-friendly, or when we say a smart home, or when we say a green home, that can be interpreted and touch a bunch of different things, from indoor air quality to water quality to recycled materials to passive solar positioning. I mean, it can touch on a lot of different things. So I think, it's just understanding what they're trying to accomplish. And then, like Steve said, you all have people that say, hey, we want to do solar. And, it's just balancing, the cost versus what they're hoping to accomplish. If it's based on financials, I would say right now it's tough to justify you're going to get your money back. If it's based on a passion of, hey, it's something I want to do, I want to be off the grid, or I want to give back, or whatever their motivation might be, then certainly we're open to doing it for people. But, we'll get people to say those things. And again, we ask those questions just to try to understand, what does green home building mean to you? Or what does a smart home or a sustainable home mean to you? And so, it starts with an open-ended question, and then we'll go down whatever path it is with the client.
Very cool. Appreciate you sharing that. That was insightful.
Danielle, just so you know, we only got about 20 minutes left. So
okay. So let me just look at my questions real quick and make sure I'm not missing any important ones here, and then we can hop into some Q&A. This was one that I kind of threw in here, and maybe builders, again, you can touch on this. Is it, and I've had clients ask me to see if it was okay to ask you before, and that's why I wrote this question down. Like, they're afraid to ask if there's incentives, if there's any incentives that you guys offer. So is that a question you get a lot? Hey, do you guys have any incentives that you can offer me for building? I know that prices are high right now, so that might not even be a possibility, but I know that I've been asked that before. So I figured I'd throw it in there and just to see what you guys said. Ooh, silence.
All right, I'll go. I felt like I just spoke, so I was trying to like bat back and forth.
Yeah,
with
that's
Steve.
okay. Appreciate it.
I give him some shots, but we don't. We don't advertise incentives. We don't have any like hidden this or that. For anyone on the call that's curious, I mean, basically what we do is we don't always build the same home over and over again. So nearly every time, it's a brand new house that's never been built before. It's never been estimated before. And so what we do is we get it bid out every single time, and then we're a fixed cost builder. So, just like anything else, we know, hey, this is the percent that I'm going to charge on top of whatever it costs so that we can run our business. Everyone gets the same margin, the same price. So we don't have like ask about the free finished basement or something like that.
Yeah.
And you'll see that more with the big box builders. Again, the Pulte's, the Ryans, that own the land, that have the mortgage business, that are selling the house. They might have a little more juice or room to do something like that, and try to do that to get momentum. They're doing so much volume, they can lose 10 grand on 3 houses if it means they can sell the next 6 lots, where, for us, it's different than that. So for us, I certainly not offended by anyone asking that question. And I usually just tell them honestly, hey, we're going to price your home. I'm going to figure out what it costs. We're going to charge this margin. I'll be transparent with you. I'll show you exactly how it comes together. And that's how we work. It's a fair price. And if you want to save money, we can take things out. If you want to add money, obviously we can put things in, and just handle it transparently with people.
I think that's huge,
Yeah,
because that gives people some trust in you, knowing that you're not pricing them out at, different prices for different types of builds. You're using that same margin that you have to stay within. What were you going to say, Steve?
Yeah, same for us. When you get to a custom builder like us, and a lot of people think custom builder, big dollar signs. It's not the case. You build with the big boys like the Ryans, the Pulte's, the Schumachers. And I'm not going to talk bad, but I will say you build the square box with them, they'll kill our price all day long. You make one change or two changes with the breakfast nook, a tiled shower, we're in the ballpark. And I personally feel you're going to get 10 times better service, 10 times better quality. That's just me speaking. But we don't do the sales gimmicks. Hey, July 4th today, get in while it's hot, $8,000 off. No, we don't do that. We give our best price across the board at any given time. I will tell you a question that came up with my partner and I is, hey, what if the lumber market plummets and prices go down? Will we be able to give our customers money back? I'm sure as heck hoping we will. I'd love to be able midway through go, hey guys, lumber came down. I saved $5,000. Where do you want it? That's not happened yet. I don't see that happening yet, but I mean, it's so high lumber prices that they've got to come down eventually. And I'd love to have that conversation because I've only had the negative ones that prices have went up. But no, we don't do incentives. Those are the big guys. They try to get customers in. Our price is the same price for veterans, single mothers, single fathers. We give a darn good price and we stand behind our quality and our price.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. I know that was kind of a weird question, but I definitely have seen, you know, those incentives been put out there and they intrigue people, but with incentives comes, you know, other things. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Greg, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, so we'll hop into a little Q&A here. We got about 15 minutes left. First off, the one thing I want to say is thank you to the panelists for doing this because this has been incredible. You know, this is the value of KWYP and what we're seeing, and these panelists are unbelievable. So I'm sure we could talk for another 8 hours if we wanted to, but everyone else is so busy. So I wrote down a couple questions. We saw a couple questions in the chat. The first one I want to ask right now is to Tim and Jenny. You know, we talked a little bit about the lending side. What is one thing we need to know on the lending side with new construction?
Oh, I got it. I got it. Got it.
You beat me to it, Jenny.
So what I love is that a lot of the agents don't know that you can do 5% down on a construction loan, right? So once when they hear that 5% down, they're like, oh my God, I can buy a house. I'm going to get a bill with 5% down. Absolutely, yeah. So if that's your takeaway for today, have at it. Share with your clients 5% down a construction loan. You know, there is doctor programs too. You know, if they're a doctor, a physician, nurse practitioner, a veterinarian, they can also do 100% financing on construction loans.
That's awesome.
Love that.
And just to piggyback off that, just really quick, Premier Bank also, a lot of people don't do lot loans. So maybe if your client is not ready now to build, maybe they just have some time, they're just not ready, but they are ready a year from now. They can secure their lot, buy their lot now, and build later.
Awesome.
Yes.
Tim?
Also, the government loans are in play for new construction. A lot of people do not realize that. So VA construction, USDA construction, FHA construction, those are all in play. A lot of times conventional might be a better option. So it's good to look at the different options. So
awesome. That's great. This one, I guess, is for our agents. So Blaze and Jen, what specific steps should we be taking on selecting builders/areas on the agent side? So is there anything we need to know about builders, areas, something like that?
I mean, from my experience, I think it's personally based on each client, where the client wants to be, etc. What I don't want to see a client do is overbuild for a community that may not support the values in future, I guess. But I definitely think if it's somebody who's looking to custom build, you know, I'm obviously going to have them meet with a couple of different builders just to see who might be the right fit, etc. And then, of course, ultimately, I think that comes down to an initial buyer intake, really, when you start asking the questions of what are your, you know, ideal locations, what does your ideal home look like, and then if you get into the new construction conversation than, knowing what they're looking for and then starting to research the builder so you can get them in front of the right ones.
Awesome. Blaze, do you have anything?
I would just add that it is very much a territorial type thing, because you don't want to go to a builder in Lodi, Ohio, and have them build in Euclid, Ohio. It doesn't make any sense. Price for them, anything, even though they're cheap down in Lodi, doesn't mean they're going to be cheap up there. Plus, they don't know the area. They don't know tap-in fees and all the other inspections and stuff that go along with it. We were talking about the different rules that are applied to builders. Those change from area to area. So it's important that when you choose a builder for your client, that you're not trying to take one out of their normal territory. Sometimes, they'll go just beyond, but going to a whole nother county or something sometimes is a big stretch for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it earlier too, Blaze. It's really just about doing the little bit of work to just make sure everyone's happy, where it's registering your client or doing a agent or a buyer intake, like you said, John. Yeah, I completely agree. So this one is kind of a loaded question, and I'm not sure I want to ask it, but as we're preparing for a shift in the market, how do you win clients during a down market with new construction? And this, I guess, is for everybody. That's what I expected.
Can you repeat that, Greg? My audio clicked out. I didn't even hear the beginning of your question.
Sure. So as we're preparing a shift in the market, right now we're in the best market we've ever seen, and we're not anticipating it to last, right? How do you win clients when we're in a down market, whether it's land or build or something, convincing someone to build over resale?
In a down market, you said?
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, it's kind of the practice from an investing standpoint. I mean, when the market's down is when you want to be on the offensive. So, our savviest clients are the ones that built with us in 2008 and 2009, as opposed to the people that sat on the sidelines and did it later. So, it's on the custom side, I think we have the benefit. My clientele is a little bit later in life. I'm not working with a lot of, people right out of high school or college doing their first house. So I think, as you get older in life, you have a little bit more urgency too. And so finding what those people's pain or urgency is. Are you trying to get your kids in this school district? Are you trying to save your commute time? Are you, wanting to get in a safer neighborhood? Do you need a first floor master? Whatever those things are. And then I ask people, one, if not now, when? And what happens if you wait? What are the implications? If you're an older person needing that first floor master, you're going to sit on the sidelines for 2 years and go up and down the steps when it's something you're not comfortable with, or, hold off getting your kid in that school district, or drive an extra half hour to work every single day. Again, I know during Corona now, a bunch of people are not working from home, but before that, commute time was something that was pretty serious. So I think it's a matter of, again, the savviest people will invest in a down market, and then playing on the urgency. And some people will say, you know what, I don't really care. I don't need to move. I don't have any pain. I just wanted a bigger, cooler house. I can wait, until this happens or that happens. But we try to find, at least we're trained to try to find what we call, somebody's pain or their motivation of why they'd want to move, or what bad happens if they stay in their current situation, and try to focus in on those things. And if someone has enough pain and motivation to make a change, they're going to make a change in our experience.
Awesome. Did anyone else want to touch on that?
Back in
go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, back in 2009, when I just first became a realtor, I was selling a bunch of new construction back then, and nobody else was. So even if the market turns, it doesn't mean that the market's going to go away. It just, you might have to work a little bit harder for it. So if you're thinking about getting into new construction and learning more about it, it's not a short-term play. There's way too much to know to try to learn it all and do it in the next 6 months to a year while the market is hot. It's a long-term play. You're going to learn it and you're going to keep doing it for years to come, whether the market's up or down.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what I was going to say.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we only have a few more. So I'd love to hear from the lending side of this question, and then I guess the builders too. How can we, or is there a way to protect / advise our clients on unforeseen price increases during building? So whether it's cost of material going up or anything like that.
So,
Blaze, go ahead.
As far as if you're doing new construction, the beauty of a construction to perm loan is you can roll in extra money as a kind of a cushion. So if you're worried about there being price increases or something, instead of your flooring allowance being $3,000, make it $5,000. As long as it appraises, you have this extra money sitting in that construction account for your loan that if you don't use it, it applies back towards the principal, your payment, like it was never there. But if you need it because prices went up, it's sitting there and you don't have to come out of your pocket with cash. So always roll in some type of interest reserve or some extras on your other allowances so that you have extra money to pay for those unforeseen things that might pop up.
yeah, so I have my customers, they do, if we're worried about that, say they don't have a lot of money, cash reserves, if they don't have anything left in a retirement account, or anything like that, that they know that they may go over on something, I either A, bump up some of their allowances like Blaze said, or the big thing I like to do is put a contingency fund on the contract. And that's just for a slush fund. Whether they know they're going to do some smart home things, but they don't even know what they're going to do yet, or prices may go up or down a little bit. I put 10, 20 grand in there just so they can have it to fall back on. The unique thing about a construction loan is say they don't touch that and there's 20 grand left over, and say they went under 2 grand on their flooring allowance. So they got $22,000 now. A, I can write them a check at the end and they can have that cash. I know you lenders probably don't like that, but that has happened. Or we just tell the lenders, hey, they came in under I forget the word you guys use, but redo their loan and take that off for them. So that's some of the things we do. So if they don't want the money or don't need the money, then the money goes back and their loan gets redone.
Perfect. Jenny, Tim, is there anything on the lending side we need to know?
No, I think both of them touched base on that. That's exactly what I was going to kind of chime in on.
Cool. So I have 2 more questions. The first one's from Chris in the chat here that he just added. What's the best way to build relationship with builders to gain their trust for listing their new build properties? Do you want them to bring the land, bring the clients first, or is there anything specific we need to do? Steve or Mark?
So what I'll tell you is this, if I were talking to a brand new realtor and they came up to me and said, how do I start working with you? All the above of what you just asked, bring the client, bring the land, bring anything, bring something to me that we can work on together. I get asked a lot of times, Steve, can I do your listings? Well, number one, I haven't done a spec house in a few years because as soon as I go to build a spec house, which I did do many years ago, they sell before I even break ground. So I love working with realtors, but I don't have a need to list a spec house right now. When the market goes down here, maybe that's all I'll be building again. But right now it's all pre-sold, meaning they get a construction loan. They know what they're wanting to build. They either have the land or I find the land for them. So the big thing is bring me a client, find us some land. Frank's been working with us a little bit, and he's gotten some land deals with some of his clients where he's doing some unique situations with them where he's letting us do a virtual build on the land to help us with his sale of the land and then helping me sell a house. And then furthermore, to that point, the unique thing and the great thing about it is we get calls off of those listings to build other homes. Maybe they don't like that area or that land or the particular house we're going to build. Well, then Frank, as the realtor with that piece of land, can then plug them in on an MLS search to help them find more land, or they may already own land, or a cousin's uncle owns land that they can get from them. And then we can get a build off of it with the realtor involved in that as well. So there's so many more ways to skin the cat, if you will, and get business for everybody involved.
Cool. Mark, anything you want to add or no?
I agree. I think the biggest thing that you could do right now is say, hey, I've got a piece of land that I'm trying to list. It could be just an individual site, and to do a virtual listing, as Steve said, or we'll call it to be built listing. You know, so if Danielle knows that she's got clients looking to sell 2 acres in Aurora, calling me and saying, hey, I got this acreage. Do you have anybody that's interested? If I do, maybe I can help you sell it right away. Or we can do a listing together and say, all right, well, let's put a 3,000 square foot house on it. And we'll, you know, virtually, not physically, but virtually, so that people can then search and know, hey, I could buy this land, build a house, be in that price point. That gives me free marketing. It won't cost you anything with me. I'm glad to do it. I would do them all day long because it's free marketing for me. And it allows you to get some more visibility to your land. And a lot of people don't have the creativity to look at a piece of land and know, you know, what they could end up doing there. And I guess that's the other thing, just maybe as one last point that didn't come up in a question, but I think as an agent, the number one thing that you need to be aware of if you're going to work with a custom scattered site builder like us, think about is make sure that you get the right contingencies in on land and that you do your homework on land. That can set the tone to really screw up a project. If you just come to me and go, hey, found this awesome property, my clients bought it, we closed last week, let's go. You know, who knows what you're in for? Wetlands, septic problems, topography, you know, feasibility of being able to fit the house. So I think that if I were talking to you and you say, hey, I got a hot one, somebody's looking for land, I found some land, pick up the phone, call Steve or I. We'd probably be glad to go out there, even if we're not getting the deal yet, and help you look at the land and do that diligence. I'd be glad to do it because if you're bringing me out, I know I got a shot to get the build. And even if I don't, if I do you that solid, hopefully you'll think of me the next time. So, you know, I'm sure Steve feels the same way. Consider us resources. If you got somebody looking at land, you know, get a builder out there. You're all smart, so you'll know like something obvious, but there could be something more subtle that you might want to do some diligence on before you go, great, let's close on this property. So I tell our people, hey, get yourself at least a 30-day, you know, conditioned on builder approval, which is super vague and no one knows what it means. And that way you can navigate within that. You know, if you say it's conditioned on, or, you know, based on septic approval, it's like, well, I might be able to figure out how to fit a septic system and get you to close on my land, but you can't build what you want, or it's going to cost way more. So if you say builder approval, contingent upon builder approval, super vague, you can get a guy like Steve or I out. We can go out, you know, crawl around the lot, find what we can, let you know what, if any, other diligence you need to do, or what, if any, other tests you need to do to make sure that that land is functional for your client. So sorry to go off topic there, but that's the one thing I feel like I wish all agents knew, because I've seen it time and again. Somebody buys a property and it's like, oh, you guys didn't realize it's going to be $100 grand more to build there because of bop, bop, bop. So that diligence, bringing in a builder to help you, probably the number one thing I could tell you.
No, I'm glad you went off topic because that was worth the price of admission right there. So
I'm glad you did too, Mark, because there, you know, among the, you know, the different approvals, you also have county approvals too, if I'm not incorrect, right? And I had a client that almost couldn't build on the land that they purchased because of that. So yeah, that was huge. Thank you.
awesome. So my last question for everybody, because we've talked about problems a lot, what's everybody's number one favorite thing about dealing with new construction?
I can go first. I love the creativity behind it. I love working with different builders just to see what's new, what they're doing, how excited my clients get when it finally like starts to fall into place and what they've built with these, you know, builders comes together. And I think that's, you know, yeah, it's months in the making, but it's just really kind of exciting to see.
Awesome. Blaze, what's yours?
I love it all. I've been doing new construction for so long. There's not one favorite thing. It's just, I put in the question was, when does the realtor get paid? Sometimes it's the beginning of the process. Sometimes it's at the end. But when you're dealing with new construction and you've sold a bunch, it's almost like you've got this built up savings account that you're getting deals that are hitting and you're getting paid for months after you've already done the work. So that's probably my favorite part, is just sometimes, you forget about a deal and all of a sudden a check arrives and you're like, wow, I forgot all about that one. It's a wonderful situation to be in. So.
Yeah.
Can I
Awesome.
speak to the agents out there that haven't done it? If you trust your builder, I'm inherently lazy. It's the easiest job there is. You're putting them in front of the builder. They trust you, you trust the builder, and the builder takes it over from there. Like they said, they don't care if you're involved all the way or if you're just handing it off. It is really an easy transaction.
Yeah, definitely. Tim, anything?
What do I like about the construction business?
Yeah.
Personally, I like that the loan amounts are a lot higher. If I'm honest, we are in Northeast Ohio, so there's several times where we're financing a house for $100,000. And honestly, from a lender's perspective, we don't really make money on a house that's $100,000, but we take care of all the clients. So from a new construction standpoint, when the loan amounts are $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, that's what I like. So.
I love the honesty, to be honest. So, Jenny?
Yeah, for me, on a lender's perspective, when it's finally done, we are still engaged with that borrower at the very end, right? Because the last occupancy permit, we are always involved with our borrowers, and they've waited so long to move in this beautiful home. So to get them into their home at the very end after all these months is great for me. I meet them at the house, I give them a little something because they have been waiting, sometimes 6-9 months for their home house. So for me, it's the tail end of it when I get to see the home when it's done. I meet them there for 2 minutes, drop off a little item for them, see their faces. It's fantastic.
Perfect. I love that. Let's end with our builders. What's your favorite thing about building?
My favorite thing absolutely is two things. First, when I get a call from a customer and they have land and want to meet with me, and even furthermore, if they're already pre-approved with an awesome lender with a construction loan, I know I've got a close ratio where I can get that customer to sign a contract and build with me that is higher than most other builders around. And short of them moving into their home, the number one thing that is the best thing for me is when I can break ground for them, because they finally see progress, they finally see something happening, and they're finally, like, their anxiety is rolling off. Now, a new form of anxiety starts from that point, but man, you put a shovel in the ground and people are happy.
Love that.
Yeah, for me, it's the creative process. It's really fun talking through with people and coming up with unique details for their house, or customizing spaces for how their family is. And then, certainly the closing is just really cool, because for me, I'll remember walking a vacant piece of land, that had tons of trees, had nothing there. It was a blank canvas. And then I remember the meetings and the discussions and the discussions about pricing and options, and as things got developed, and then you come in and realize, like, hey, that was a vacant piece of land, and now this family's going to live here and make a lot of memories. And it's really cool to kind of reflect back and just remember the stages of it and be at closing. And people are usually very appreciative. And so yeah, it's that warm and fuzzy stuff for me at the end. And then really just, I think the creativity, it's just cool to do something different. Having worked for big production builders or selling the same floor plan over and over again, this is something every day is different, and it's fun to do.
That's awesome. Well, I cannot thank our panelists enough, because this has been a wealth of knowledge in an area that I think a lot of people don't have knowledge in. So the value has been incredible for us. So like I said, we're going to share everybody's info that was on the panel with everyone on the call, and it's been amazing. So thank you guys so much. I know we ran about 10 minutes over, so I appreciate everyone sticking on, and thank you. And